Welcome back, believers and non-believers, to part 2 of our conversation with Isaac Weishaupt. Today, we're going to finish up our conversation and we're going to talk about how to crack the code of symbolism about well-known movies and celebrities. Plus, we share our thoughts on cryptocurrency, of course, and get into some of those conspiracy issues. Shaun, are you ready to roll with this?
I sure am, Billy. Let's jump right back into this rabbit hole.
A lot of people are moving out of Hollywood. Let's get into that. You deal with celebrities all the time, but I'm interested in, I mean, hell, are they all pedophiles? Is this Epstein list all legitimate? And then why are they all being protected? You mentioned that earlier, but are they just so powerful that there's never going to be any consequence for the type of thing that was going on there?
I admire your willingness to go into the deepest, darkest corners of this thing right off the bat, Billy.
That's where Billy lives, bro.
I love it.
I didn't know if we were going to go to these types of areas.
Oh man, I watch that stuff so much. It's just, and it quite honestly, it pisses me off to see that these things could have been happening right under our eyes, and then, of course, he dies of suicide, which to me, if you're a conspiracy theorist, that's on the top of your list right there. I mean, I don't even call that a conspiracy, but
yeah,
what happened and why are these things going without any consequence?
I think, and of course, these are just my opinions and thoughts from reading a lot of different occult literatures and looking at it from the spiritual angle. If you go back to, all the way back to the Book of Enoch, where these were some texts they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, where the great grandfather of Noah had these experiences where he had visions and talked to God and all this stuff. So, of course, take this with a massive grain of salt. But he talked about how there were these, in the Bible co-ops this too, in the book of Genesis, where there were these fallen angels called the Watchers, and they came to Earth and they procreated with the females and made this race of giants called the Nephilim, which, it ties us into that Miami thing. But some people say this is the bloodline of Cain or the bloodline of Seth, whatever. We don't need to get wrapped around the axles on it. But the idea is that in the Book of Enoch, he talks about how the Watchers, these demonic fallen spirits, they taught mankind a lot of these various forbidden arts. That includes ritual magic and necromancy and talking to the dead. And of course, what do you see happening today? And this is, and I say these things, and I hope people don't think I'm being judgmental, because I'm a degenerate, like the worst of the worst of us. But I went down this path, ghost hunting. I started ghost hunting in '99 with the my buddy in the military was in the Utah Ghost Hunter Society, and I joined him, and we started recording EVPs with the recorders everywhere. And I thought it was the craziest thing, because this was before I saw it on TV. And we were communing with spirits is what we were doing. And this is stuff that the Bible tells you don't do this stuff. And this goes all the way back to the Watchers. And I find it interesting that all these forbidden arts that God didn't want us to do, the Watchers, these fallen demonic spirits, were teaching mankind how to do. And that includes drinking blood and all kinds of stuff. And from this, you think, because cannibalism is another main thing you'll see when you research a lot of this stuff. You got pedophilia and cannibalism. These are kind of the most forbidden things, and you see this pop up oftentimes. And it's really bizarre. Either one is really bizarre and hard to wrap your mind around. But this goes back to the original sort of concept of evil. And the, going back hundreds of years, you had this entity called Moloch that they used to sacrifice their babies to. Like, these were literal things. And then you've got there's a thing called Shunamatism. I don't want to go too deep, but King David practiced this. And this idea of Shunamatism is that you could sort of vampirically channel energy from the youth. And from this, you've seen this trope many times, is this idea of old people don't want to get old and die. Of course, they want to stay young. They want this fountain of youth. And some people believe that there's an ancient practice that you could use to, I don't know, keep your youth and beauty and all these things. Right?
It's like Hocus Pocus, like the
Exactly,
witches.
yeah.
Yeah, they want to be young, so they get it. Yeah.
Shaun, it's funny you bring that up because I did a deep dive into Hocus Pocus in, I think it was 2020 or 21. I had never seen the movie. I wasn't my jam, but I watched it. And I do what I do with all my film analysis. I almost watch the thing frame by frame. I watch it multiple times. I take notes. I research. And the most shocking thing was that there's a book, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes into the movie when the Sanderson sisters are being persecuted by the town. They have this spell book and they drop the book. And the video, it zooms in and the pages flip by real fast.
Yep,
well,
I'm with you.
If you pause it, you can see what's written on those pages. And I was able to find, I don't know I don't know if Disney makes the replica of it, but you can buy a replica of it online, and I did because I wanted to make sure what I was reading was what I was seeing. And it's a lot of Latin phrases. And I was looking up a particular set of Latin phrases, and the research takes me down this rabbit hole of this book that was written in the 70s, or maybe it was the 80s. You got to listen to the show, Shaun. You're gonna love it.
I'm on it.
It's one of my most popular ones because it's really mind blowing. And in the book, that this phrase, I mean, I'm talking, I don't even know, 20 words in Latin. So there's no mistaking it. It wasn't like 2 words and I found them in a book. This is 20 consecutive Latin words, and they're in a ritual of where witches would, I'm going to try to keep it PG. Witches would do a ritual with Satan, and they would make sexy time with Satan in this like ritual while they chanted this Latin phrase. And that was literally in the Disney movie.
That's in the Disney movie? In the book?
Yeah, that's the original one. And of course, the whole storyline is where the witches, they're trying to harness the life force, the power from that young boy, I think.
All the kids. They want all the kids in the town, but with that boy in the start. The girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember the details, but it's something you see over and over and over again. And I do think that it ties into some of these occult beliefs of what these people are into, and it's really bizarre, and it's hard to wrap your mind around. It does make you mad because it's crazy that people get away with this stuff. Especially
so there's bigger things going on than just the fantasy or the sexual desire. Do you think there's something beyond it?
I don't know. I try to understand it, and I would think that what I would think is, okay, these are celebrities, and going back to the pagan theory is like, these are the modern day gods and goddesses. They can have literally anything they want. And I don't know, for some of these guys, they could have sex with any woman they want or whatever. Yeah. And they think, well, what's the thing that's going to really, turn the crank? And I got to have something that's forbidden or something.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
But it also, people in regular life do this too. I used to watch that Chris Hansen show, To Catch a Predator, back in the day. All walks of life were doing this, so it's not just the celebrities, but yeah, boy, it's a weird thing for sure. And I think that's also, again, around the same time period where people start questioning things, because you see the list of the people who are on the flight logs and people going to the island, and now everyone's coming out like, no, that wasn't me. And I went there for a picnic. Oh man,
we were just doing a photo shoot. It wasn't anything. And that brings me to that movie Eyes Wide Shut. That was a powerful movie. That's Tom Cruise, right? And watched that show, kind of like, that was my first experience with some of these demonic type rituals. It's like a secret society. Yeah. Did you have anything to say about that when that came out?
I've got a lot to say about Eyes Wide Shut. I wrote a whole book called Kubrick's Code, where I talked about various Stanley Kubrick movies where it seems that he's exposing this cabal, if you look at it through the right lens. And that was back in, I think it was my second book I wrote back in 2013 or 14. I wrote that. And I've learned a ton since then. So, I kind of, in a way, I'm embarrassed by the book sometimes. But I did have a whole section on Eyes Wide Shut. And since then, I've done, I think, 7 or 8 episodes just deep diving into this movie, because there's so much going on there. There's also a book that was, some of the supporting research. I read a book by Arthur Schnitzler called Dream Novella. That's what this movie is based upon. Kubrick, his whole life, was obsessed with this story and wanted to make it his movie. This is going to be his magnum opus. And of course, it was his, in fact, last movie because he died, but right before it was released, which a lot of conspiracy people say that he was murdered, and I tend to believe there's some, that's very possible.
Mm.
And then, so you got the Dream novella book, and then there's a book, I think it was called just like The Making of Eyes Wide Shut, where they go through a lot of the ideas of how Kubrick made this movie. And what you'll see when you, because we surely can't go through all of the Eyes Wide Shut symbolism, but you'll see it seemed that he was exposing the elites, because there's obviously the mansion party scene where everyone's, wearing masks and they're having sex with women. Excuse me. But that is a play on Francis Dashwood's Hellfire Caves, which was a few hundred years ago. Same story. The elites of the town, they would meet up at these secret little caves where they did satanic rituals, and they would wear masks, because the idea is, the mask wearing is multifaceted. It's for one, it suppresses the ego and it lets you sort of take on a character. It's like what Halloween costumes are all about, and that's why it's fun to dress up for Halloween. You're kind of not yourself today. You can kind of be wild or whatever. That's one aspect. Another one is because they would do such debaucherous acts that they didn't want other people to see who it was doing it, was the idea. So that, and the Francis Dashwood caves, they had above the entrance to the caves, they wrote "Do Without Wilt," and this was from Francois Rabelais, and Aleister Crowley would later take that, and that would be his phrase for, because when you get deep into the occult realm, you find this guy Aleister Crowley. He was channeling aliens, and he was making up the new world order of how society was going to go. He died in 1947, and all the stuff he wanted society to turn into has in fact turned into that. But Eyes Wide Shut, it's a fascinating look at the elites, because you've got this sort of debaucherous, party. Then at the end, when Tom Cruise's character, Dr. Bill Harford, he's talking to Sidney Pollack's character, Ziegler, and Ziegler, if you listen to the dialogue, he basically tells Tom Cruise, like, you don't want to mess with these people, dude. Like, just mind your own business, go back to your little life.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie is fascinating. It's kind of long, it's kind of dry. In fact, I remember I drug my wife to go see it in the theaters when it came out, because I was really into Kubrick. I grew up watching Clockwork Orange and Full Metal Jacket and The Shining. And I remember at the time when it was released, it was supposed to be this really scandalous movie because Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were married, and it's like, oh, they've got this sex scene in the movie. And we went to the theater, and it was like 2 seconds long, and you're like, what is this?
Disappointing.
Yeah. And it was really weird. And I just remember walking out of the theater, which, I was, I don't know, maybe 19 or 20 or 21. I don't know. And I remember something grabbed me about the movie. It was a boring movie to me back then, but I also walked out feeling very, like it seemed surreal. Like there was something going on there. Mm-hmm. And this is before I ever thought about looking into any of this stuff. So it took
deeper story.
Yeah.
That was my take too when I saw it. A couple other movies that I remember and this is more of the conspiracy stuff. But remember Mel Gibson and wasn't the movie called Conspiracy Theory?
Yeah, I've never seen it, if you can believe
you
that.
Haven't seen it. Okay. Well, he's kind of they portray him as more of a psycho. He's kind of, everything is conspiracy, and he locks his door like 4 different times, and he sets this I think it's like a toothpick on and he's always thinking people are coming to get him because he's got these theories, and he keeps all of his food and his coffee locked up in these things and canisters, and he has to count everything. It's a very interesting movie. I think you should watch that.
Yeah, I should. It's probably trying to program the idea of what, this is what it looks like when you start looking into things, everybody. Yeah. You start getting crazy.
They paint you as crazy, but in the end of the movie comes out he wasn't.
Yeah,
he wasn't crazy.
Oh, really? In the plot? Well, it's funny because in real life, Mel Gibson got into a bunch of trouble for saying some stuff, and I don't know. Interesting subjects, though.
We talked kind of the first of the episode about how celebrities are maybe linked to being like Greek gods, right? You know, your Swifties and all the Katy Perry, I forget what they call those, and Lady Gaga has her monsters and all that. It's weird. They're literally being worshipped by people. But I find it weird when someone goes against the grain of the higher powers or the machine, whatever you want to call it, like Dave Chappelle. I mean, the dude went against the grain, started doing what he wanted to do, I think, instead of what he was being told to do. And then he went through hell, man. He went through the ringer. And so it's like, if you go against this higher power, you know, once you're in, then they can easily take you out. I think it's wild.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And over the years, I say this, and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but over the years, I've been approached by several Hollywood type people, production studios, and they have absolute control because they'll approach me. Hey, we're interested. We're thinking about doing a show where, we're going to explore different conspiracies and different things like this. And the first couple times I got those emails, I was really stoked. I was like, oh man, this is sick. I'm going to be on TV or whatever.
Big time, man.
Yeah, I made it. And when you would do, and you record, like, they call them sizzle reels or whatever, when you record and the process to make it to a Hollywood movie or a show, I mean, you got to thread a needle because it takes forever and they don't take on every project. Like I said, I bet over, since I've been doing this in 2011, I bet I've had, I don't know, maybe 10 real close calls where it was like, okay, I'm going to make it big time. I'm going to be in this movie. I'm going to be on this TV show, or I'm going to work with this famous celebrity. Because you wouldn't believe it, but some of these celebrities are interested in these subjects. And there was one guy, I can't say his name, but there was one guy who I was supposed to do a show with. I was so excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be sick. Two big time celebrities. And of course, none of it works out. But from the moment they start talking to you, they start grooming you. And they start wanting they want to test you, and they want to see what you're willing to talk about. And a few of the times they would want me to talk about things that I didn't actually believe in. Like the one wanted me to talk about how I thought HARP was actually modifying the weather and creating hurricanes and earthquakes, because that's the conspiracy theory angle. And I said, look, that's the conspiracy theory. I'd love to come talk about it on the show, but I'm not going to sit here and say I believe this. And they were like, no, you have to say it. You have to sort of sell it. You have to be the conspiracy guy. And I was like, I'm not doing that, dude. Like, I don't believe, I don't, it could be, but I'm not, you want to talk about man being on the moon. I'll come on there and say, I don't think a man was on the moon, but, but it is a grooming process, and they control every bit of it, from down to, you're going to wear this color shirt on this, and you gotta say these exact words. So I mean, I'm not shocked when I hear about these celebrities. If they don't toe the line, of course they get axed, because there's a lot of control behind that in the Hollywood system, from what I can tell.
It looks like it.
There's a lot of them leaving. I mean, you see them all the time now.
And that's I think the reason we're seeing that is because I think that the internet has democratized a lot of things, and now you could run your own podcast. These celebrities can use their reach on social media and control their own destiny. They don't need people telling them what they can or can't do, or what they what they should be okay with. Because I imagine some of these folks, they go to big parties and they probably witness some things that morally they don't agree with, and they're probably like, dude, I don't want to have nothing to do with this town. I'm out of here. And I think that's why we see a lot of that happening.
Tying some of this back in financial end, cryptocurrency has been around for a while. Started kind of out of nowhere, really. I don't think to this day anyone really knows who started Bitcoin as a thing, how it came about. I've heard theories, and these would be deep conspiracy theories, that it was out of Russia. It was Putin. There's certain reasons, and believable reasons of why that happened. I mean, he's one of the richest men around, but of course you don't know that. And a lot of people put very bad paint pictures of how evil he is and corrupt, all those oligarchs are, and how much control they have. And, those are the types of societies we try to shy away from, and always cast this this negative shadow over it. But the Bitcoin thing and how it pertains to celebrities and this kind of like underground hidden network of currency and transactions and things that aren't traceable, and you can't find all the data behind it. So of course there's illegal drug smuggling, there's human trafficking going on, probably arms deals, and it's all done through these cryptocurrencies, which is to me why they're becoming so popular. Yet I still will never, at least the way I feel right now, I don't, and I can't find any legitimate reason to make that a recommendation for an investment, because to me, a currency should be what it's supposed to be, which is a store of value. It's something that keeps stable. So the dollar, the Federal Reserve is supposed to keep the currency stable. That's their mandate. Stable currency, stable prices, and full unemployment. That's their job. Now they've screwed it up royally in the last couple of years. That's just out there. We can debate on that if anybody wants to bring it back, but they've messed that up. What I'm trying to figure out is all these underground networks of transactions, things like that, and how they all work, and if we ever had regulations on these things. So the future of crypto, to me, is very suspect. The underground and the illegal operations are what's keeping that thing going. That's my view.
This is a big can of worms here, Billy. In fact, you're the guy I would want to talk to about this, because I could be talked to either side of the Bitcoin argument. I'll give you the conspiracy, because a lot of conspiracy people are into cryptocurrencies, and what they would tell you is that this is a way of getting past the Illuminati or something like that. Because when you look at the foundations of the modern day, our central banking system in America, we've got the Federal Reserve, and that was started with John Rockefeller was part of the council or whatever that was called at Jekyll Island, that they were they devised the plan to, in secret, they did a secret meeting to create this Federal Reserve. And smart guys like you that know money and stuff, you could probably explain to me why it's important to have that and why that actually stabilizes the currency, and it's what leads to we live a pretty good life in America. Is it perfect? No, but what is? And you could argue that, things have been going pretty well since then. So that John D. Rockefeller knew what he was doing. But the conspiracy mind would say, no, this guy's the devil, and he's trying to. In fact, the house, the Rockefellers owned the cottage on Jekyll Island where they did the Federal Reserve meeting, and in the front yard was an ancient Indian burial ground that some people say goes back to the Nephilim giants that we were talking about earlier. Anyway,
what's the name of that book? The name of that book on Jekyll Island, all about the Federal Reserve. God, I can't remember it. I own the book. It's a huge volume, huge.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh my God! But it talks about all the problems, and it brings to light how that all came about, and how there was a lot of conflicts of interest. Let's just say that.
Oh, interesting. It's a big topic, and I'm not educated enough to really know how to make heads or tails of it.
Well, the financial end is another probably a whole show that we could create, because that's interesting. We see all the time what's going on around the world and the markets and the economy, and is it good? Is it bad?
Nancy Pelosi's 65% returns last year. I mean, she's a genius.
We've had people call and want to ask if they can get into her fund. Can we invest in the Pelosi portfolio?
Yeah, I think there's an app where you can do that. I don't know if it's.
They're trying to follow every move. Yeah. But it's interesting that they can trade on that news.
Yeah, and then there was proposals that they ban stock trading for Congress people, and of course that's not going to pass. But anyway,
like they're going to maybe implement term limits. You think that's going to go through?
No, man, they're not gonna change the system at all. I don't think. I'm pretty negative when it comes to that.
Works too good for them.
Yeah. Why would they take themselves out of power, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. But yeah, finances was let me stick to crypto. So crypto, from the conspiracy point of view, we like that because it takes, because banks and the way we used to do things, you have that trust system where I put my money in the bank and I trust that they're going to manage it okay, and like if I need it I can get it out, whatever. And the cryptocurrency is a more of a, I don't know, libertarian thing where it's a trustless system. I now hold the keys and I can get into my stuff. But what I don't like about it is it's like, yes, but then now you can lose your password and you lose all your money, which kind of sucks. But the conspiracy people like it because they say, well, the ledger, the blockchain ledger, everyone can see it, and that's what makes this the greatest thing ever. But the problem is I'd argue most people are not that good with technology, myself included. I have a ton of cryptos. I bought a ton of cryptos, and some of it's really dicey, and I pucker up sometimes because I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know who I would call if something goes wrong when I send this crypto to this wallet or whatever, and things crash, and the FTX thing, and what is it, Mount Grok, people lose money on their cryptos all the time. Like it's if that was the American banking system, this place would be chaos.
Oh yeah.
So I'm with, like I said, I could be talked to either side of this, but I don't think I think cryptos is not for everyone. I think it involves way too much like legwork and understanding of technologies that arguably nobody really understands entirely. Like Carl Sagan warned us about. Carl Sagan warned us about this with technology. Like, the problem is everyone, you need a group of a panel of experts to understand one piece of technology. Like that's what he was worried was going to happen one day, and that's where we're at.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say is that I grew up on a farm, so I don't claim to be the smartest or brightest or tech genius at all. Matter of fact, I need to know my limitations there, and every day when I come to work, they remind me just how many limitations I have around here. But I've been around long enough to see the young generation get maybe a little too cocky with what they believe and what they think, and they've reinvented the wheel, so to speak. And we saw that with the subprime mortgage collapse in 08, 09, with all these sophisticated Harvard graduates. And I'm not just trying to pick on Harvard. I think it's a lot of these elite Ivy League universities that try to train these finance execs, and they all want to have their moment, their name, the big splash. So they come out, they create these new packages, these new vehicles, if you will, for investment. And they created that out of nothing. It didn't need to be created. They created these packages, subprime mortgages, package them up into these terrible investment structures, and they're garbage. And when you put garbage in with something of quality, it's going to contaminate. It's all going to be garbage. So that's what ended up happening, and it blew the whole system up. And hey, a lot of people were complicit in that. So I'm just kind of ranting here, but from the banking industry to the mortgage company, they didn't want that party to end. They were promoting the hell out of it. Get the houses going, sell them, no money down. Government was right behind it. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac promoting home ownership. And then you had, of course, the construction industry. Why would they want that in? So everybody had a hand in it. And then they were promoting, let's just do some spec homes. Everybody needs this. So what I'm getting at is when everything changed, people think they found a new way, a new method, and they're going to retire on these cryptos. This is what I say doesn't work, Isaac. My opinion is that when everything looks like it's too easy, and people now seriously, they think they're going to stick 5 or 10 grand in some of these cryptos, and they're going to retire in 10, 15 years with $5 million. And I know that some of them early on in Bitcoin, they made that kind of money, but I don't see how in the world that possibly is sustainable. It's like they say, well, they don't make them anymore. There's only so many of them. And I understand the Bitcoin concept theoretically with this blockchain technology, which I know is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. It's useful. What I question though is what should the value be for something that you're going to use as a store of value, should that be considered an investment? What does it produce? Is there earnings? Does it have a business? Does it have employees? Does it pay a dividend? And this is like buying all the gold and sticking it in your back storage room and looking at it. And then, back in the day, people love that because gold is very rare. Keep it. You can exchange that for something down the road. And I don't know, new generation looks at gold and they laugh at it. They'd rather have the Bitcoin you can't ever touch or see, but it's somewhere stored somewhere in this space. And it just doesn't ever give me any good quality feeling of ownership. It's like what the hell were those things? The monkey images and all those
NFTs.
Yeah. Oh my hell. What the hell was that all about?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in my 40s, so I can see your perspective and I can see the young people perspective. I've actually gotten into investments in the stock market the last couple years, and I've read several books like Peter Lynch, and I could see how you would be uncomfortable investing money into that kind of into cryptos, because when you're researching stocks and looking at the financial sheets, at least from my idiot perspective, trying to understand if a company's do the liabilities outweigh the assets, or how's the projected growth look, that kind of thing. Like, you've got all these things you can look at, whereas Bitcoin, there's just this fantasy of, they're just going to make less and less, and you better make sure you have some. It's kind of weird, right? Because there are exceptions, but you basically can't buy anything with it right now. It's not like Amazon takes Bitcoin, which is also part of the conspiracy thinking, because it seems like the banking system wants to make sure cryptos don't become this, viable thing.
Well, it could hurt the dollar. Imagine if we changed currency. We decided dollar's no longer going to be used anymore. It's going to be only digital, and it's going to be Bitcoin based. Hell, the dollar, you just burn them up. But when shit hits the fan, what do people want to do with their Bitcoin? They want to convert it back to dollars. That's the currency that people know they can rely on, at least. And it's funny because it's a piece of paper. So you kind of go back in time and think, how did this all come about? Well, people actually grew comfortable in having all their worth tied up in a piece of paper. But it just says, it just basically, here's something that says I'm worth this. I can buy this good or service. And it's supposed to hold its value and be stable. But if the argument is that they don't make any more, then I would submit to you, get your $2 bills out, and those things should be worth a flipping pile, because they don't make any more of them. And so let's just start investing in $2 bills.
I think you mentioned how you heard a theory that Putin was so there's a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto that was allegedly the name of the person who wrote the first Bitcoin concept paper. But that is interesting, because when you put it that way, it makes me think that, because when I first got indoctrinated into the world of cryptos back in 2016 or 17, a buddy of mine was into it, showed me how to buy them. And I wish I would have bought more, by the way. I spent a few $100 on Bitcoin, and I kept it, and it's worth thousands now. But I'm with you. I pucker up a little bit with this stuff, because I'm like, man, who knows? It could go away tomorrow. But the idea that a lot of people, I would say maybe anarchists and libertarians and people who don't like the idea of the U.S. government or the U.S. being an empire or whatever, I imagine they would have interest in making Bitcoin the new sort of universal standard, because that would, like you said, that would shut down the U.S. dollar a bit, and I'm sure Putin wouldn't hate that.
So that's why one of those reasons that you start to wonder, is that possible? But then you wonder, is there a controlling force? And I know that you're supposed to be able to see this, and you're not supposed to be able to mess with this whole ledger thing. That's the technology, right? But see, again, I'm not smart enough to know that I trust that. I don't know that I can trust it somehow, some way. If you can invent it, you can probably figure out how to uninvent it or change it. This is where I am not comfortable. And probably, you just call me a dinosaur. That's great. I don't know. I might get left in the dark, and then everyone else goes on and becomes a multi-billionaire owning Bitcoin. That's fine. I'll just have to watch everybody party on. But I don't think I'm going to be.
Well, like my thing is, if you want to do some shady business, use your cash. I mean, no one can really trace that. You know what I mean? Whereas like Bitcoin, you can literally see which wallets they're going to. So if someone can confirm you've got this wallet, it shows every movement you've made. So I would think if you're the Illuminati or you're the big eye in the sky, like the Bitcoin's the fantasy. You know, the cashless society that they talk about being part of the end times. I don't know.
Yeah, I just go by what I hear and what I read. And so most of the stuff is probably wrong or incorrect. But I like to hear both sides. I mean, I'm not anti-information. I try to hear both sides of an argument, like you said, and understand what's the point behind it. But maybe I'm just biased because I don't trust the younger generation and all that they try to push out there, especially when it's supposed to be the next best thing. Because I've heard and seen it too many times in my career. This next greatest thing turns up complete bust, and everybody loses everything. And the FTX thing, I know that it wasn't necessarily a Bitcoin going bust or broke, but it was a fraudulent company from the get-go, supposed to be pushing out this your money's safe here, or your crypto wallet is safe here, and they were that was a lie. And I know that can happen in corporate America as well. Hell, I followed a number of companies and invested in a number of companies that were lying and cooking the books. WorldCom, Enron. You can go on and on. There's a bunch of companies that have gone out of business because they weren't managing themselves properly.
And this goes back to that argument we had earlier. It's trendy amongst the youth because I'm young enough that I can understand the youth. We bought our first house in 2008, right before the crash happened, and the housing market crashes, and we couldn't get out of the house for 6 years. We wanted to move. I was actually going to move to Los Angeles in when was it? 2013, I think it was. And we couldn't sell the house. We were $25,000 underwater, and we had put, I don't even know, 10, 20 grand into fixing up this house. And we were still way too deep underwater. And I was like, man, it's been 5 years. What the heck? And it screwed I don't say it screwed my life up, but it changed my life, and it's stuff like you get enough kicks in the face like that you're like, why? I don't want to be a part of this system, man. Like, this sucks. And like, why did this happen? Because some jerks on Wall Street were selling subprime mortgages. Why would I want to, like, part of me, because part of the allure of cryptos, is that you're moving out of that system and into a new system. And a lot, conspiracy people will even point to the dollar bill, the backside of the dollar bill, and to say, look, there's all this occult symbolism on it. You've got the owl in the corner, and the owl is the Bohemian Grove, where all the elites meet up every year. You've got the
all-seeing eye,
inside the pyramid, which is a Freemasonic symbol for God. And then it says the new world order on the bottom. It says Novus Ordo Seclorum, means new order of the ages. So there's appeal to cryptos. I don't know though. Is it the right path?
I can understand where you're coming from. I totally do. I mean, and I appreciate those comments, because it's like a rise against that. And Shaun calls it the machine, a rise up against it. And I understand why people would want to do that. Sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in, and whatever position. I don't agree with some of the young generation who just think virtue signaling anti-corporate America. They'd rather burn their dollars than have any exposure to capitalism, which I think is totally foolish. That just to me, it just screams of victim mentality. Like, I don't believe in this, and it's like, I'm poor and I'm always going to be poor. Well, you don't have to be. I'd like to show you how you can be very successful, very wealthy, just by being a passive investor in a business that's already established. You don't have to do anything. Just invest. Just buy shares in it and continue to buy shares in it. But there is that, you're making an argument that I have to understand and be patient with.
I think it's part of that mistrust in the institutions. You get burned, and I'm with you in the sense that I get it. I don't want to see our capitalist system burned to the ground either. I don't think communism is a better system or something like that. But free market capitalism, with enough checks and balances, it's a good system, and like it gives people a good way of life, and like that's what we're all just trying to pursue happiness. So yeah, and the you're talking about FTX and people losing all their money, and that just goes to show there is this idea that you don't really, not everyone understands the technology of what they're investing in with cryptos at all. I mean, it's very confusing. I've read a few books on cryptos, and I should know it off the top of my head to explain exactly how it works, and I'd have to sort of sit down and write notes out and be like, okay, here's what I think happens, and
you're a very smart guy. I mean, you could rattle off names like you're an encyclopedia. So I'm just sitting here in awe. Like, how do you remember all these names?
Well, sometimes, yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting story, especially given the recent press, Bitcoin surging back up again, and I don't know. I don't know what the people say. It's like, oh, the American Federal Reserve and the American capitalist system is Illuminati, and Bitcoin's the savior. And it's like, well, I don't know if I believe that either, because it seems like Bitcoin might be more of the system where they can monitor your every move, is what I would think. But
well, what about if they go to a digital currency with the in the US? Does that scare you, or do you feel better about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. I don't know enough about the I've when I invest into the crypto, I'll hear what the idea is of what the project is, because sometimes you can cash in. I've certainly lost a lot on them too. I bought some NFTs that are probably worthless that I spent way too much on, because the NFT is an interesting idea. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see more about it.
Well, that's what they're talking about going to, which potentially could be a competition for other cryptos. And there's a lot of antis out there, because they would say hey, now they're going to be able to track everything you do. They're going to follow every move you make. If you buy a gun, they're going to know about it. And that scares the hell out of a lot of conservatives. And there's other people that don't like it. I mean, this is a tough sale. Shaun always talks in the office about symbols, so I'm gonna I
was gonna say, guys, damn it! I thought we were doing a podcast without investing. We're having a fun one here, but I know you got to tie it in there. Shaun. All right, reel it in for me.
So symbolism. I mean, Shaun loves it. He is the Illuminati watcher in our office. And when I told him about you, he was so excited. He was so pumped. Awesome. What are some symbols that our listeners need to be prepared and watching out for?
To watch out for, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this is an interesting topic, because people, this is the gateway drug into conspiracy world, is the symbols, because you could talk all this crazy talk and it'll make people's eyes gloss over, it'll go over their head, or they'll just be like, wow, this is crazy talk. But when you talk symbols, then they see it for themselves, and then they say, oh crap, that is kind of weird. The all-seeing eye is probably the biggest one. You see it, celebrities they'll cover up one eye for no apparent reason, or they'll sort of do a thing where they make the OK symbol with their hand and cover their one eye with it. It seems like this used to be done more often than it is today, but it's still done. And I think it's because so many people were maybe talking about it, because it was supposed to be this subtle nod to other people in the, quote unquote Illuminati, that this person was a part of the system of pushing symbolism upon the masses. And I don't think all these celebrities are privy to the occult concepts. I think they're just doing what they're told to do. I think they're just at a photo shoot and they said, okay, do this, and they do it, right? But the all-seeing eye is a reference to the idea of being enlightened into the occult philosophies of the ancient mystery schools. And you can, depending on how deep you want to take all that stuff, it's hard to know how far to go with it, but that's one of them. Then another one would be the triangle or the pyramid. This is, and this is represented by symbolism that's not occult or Illuminati necessarily, but this goes back to Pythagoras. He started the first secret society basically in 500 BC. Whereas initiates, they would take these multi-year vow silences, and then he would teach them the philosophy of how the world was created and how God's mind works through symbols and numbers and geometry. Like his people would have a star symbol on their hand. I don't know if it was tattooed or not, but they would have a symbol on their palm of their hand of a star, a pentagram. But the triangle is it represents, in some ways it represents masculinity, some ways it represents fire. But another way it's depicted is the structure of the Illuminati. It's the structure that everyone on the bottom, they don't know what's going on the level above them, and so on and so forth until you get to the apex, and that's where the eye, of course, is shown. The eye is shown at the apex of the pyramid. That's the in Freemasonry, you'll see the symbolism of the eye, and to them they say, well, this is the representation of God, the grand creator. And when you look at the Freemason compass and square, you'll see the big G, and that G is supposed to stand for God. But yeah, and in ritual magic, they use the triangle. This goes real crazy deep. They call it the triangle of manifestation, where the magician will stand in a circle and they'll do a ritual and they'll channel a spirit into the triangle. And if you want to go into the alien theory, there's a there's a guy named Peter Lavenda who wrote a book with Tom DeLonge, the guy from Blink-182.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, have you? So the first book they wrote, it talks about the alien phenomenon, and he lays down, because I've read many of Peter Lavenda's books. He's a very knowledgeable on the occult. I think he still says that he doesn't practice it, but I don't believe that for a second. The Peter Lavenda basically lays out. He's the one I think wrote the entire book. I can tell by the way it's written.
Tom funded it.
Yeah, Tom just put his name on it. But Peter, he lays out Gnostic philosophies, and the Gnostics, they believed in a different version of reality. They thought that God was really the devil, and this world that we live in is basically a material hell, and we need to sort of find a way out of it. But in it, he throws out the theory that magically the UFO manifests itself through human intervention, and that's why you'll see the symbols of triangles and circles as the UFO, and it's almost like a magic ritual from their dimension into ours in a way where they'll manifest us and we'll manifest them. And anyway, it's interesting stuff. But yeah,
it's all wild stuff. When you talked about like the covering the eye and stuff, I always think of this Katy Perry music video that she does, and it's kind of like Egyptian based, right? And she's covering her eye, and there's little like triangles everywhere. And I'm like, okay, fine. But why the song that she's doing this video to has nothing to do with pyramids and Egypt? And so it's like, why is that theme there? Who told her to do that? And she's obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but could be trying to send a message to all of her followers. And I don't know, that the symbolism stuff definitely gets me hooked in, but there's so many questions.
That's interesting you bring that up. That was her Dark Horse video.
Yes.
And when that happened, I remember when the video released, I was more into blogging than I was anything else back then. So I blogged an article about it. We were actually at an airport just wasting time. We had hours on the layover, and I saw the video and I thought, oh man, this is loaded with all this Egyptian symbolism of the occult. And I wrote a whole piece about it. And then it was, a week later, the mainstream media was talking about this video, and the Atlantic wrote a piece, and they presented my information on the Atlantic about the conspiracy theories behind this music video.
Wow, you didn't get kicked off of there, huh?
No. but I think, one idea is that they're claiming there's this revelation of the method thing that's happening too. That's another theory about what's going on right now. And the mainstream media is allowing people to talk about these because they want the public to understand these concepts, but it can't come from, the president can't come out here and say, hey, we've got a way of channeling aliens and this is how we do it. It has to be sort of
gently introduced by someone else, maybe, and then you start accepting it from a trusted source other than the government. Okay.
Yeah, which is why some people think Tucker who Tucker's talking about aliens now, right? And some people say that Tucker's part of this because he wears a red string bracelet that is known in this philosophy religion called Kabbalah, which is a lot of occult stuff tied into it. But
guys, we're gonna need a longer show, or we gotta go.
Yeah.
We gotta go to breakfast or something. It's
a paranoid little world. I mean,
it is.
Love it.
Man,
awesome.
Isaac, there's so much going on right there. We appreciate you coming on the show. We're going to have you again. I can tell that we have a lot more to talk about.
I'd love to. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for everyone for listening in today, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you for listening to Harnessing Your Wealth with Billy Peterson. Before we declare the race official, please click the follow button so you can be notified when new episodes become available. For more information about today's show, please check out the show notes. Visit our website at www.petersonws.com or give us a call at 801-475-4002. Once again, thank you for listening. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Peterson Wealth Services. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.